what was right for kids, and I'm not at all unhappy or sorry that I did that. We were not successful in that initiative, but what it did set up was the pathway to a model that has been very successful both in Michigan but also nationally in states to help put more teeth around changing the policies that will ultimately support families and kids in making those decisions for themselves. And that was the right decision, and it's been a really interesting course of events from 22 years ago to now, where we see the last 2 years, as the Attorney General just said, where families have had a front row seat to see the failings that I have seen for so many years before that, but so many more have seen them up close and personal.
We like to say that all of America got to see behind the education curtain.
That's
and
right.
So let's get to your very exclusive peek behind the education curtain, serving as the 11th Secretary of Education. What was that like for you? What were your instincts when you were first being considered and then asked if you would serve? What was that like for you and your family?
Well, it was a big surprise. I had literally never given a thought to serving in a role like that. But when the opportunity arose, both Dick and I talked about it, and it seemed so far-fetched. But then at the same time, we said, well, if it is possible, how could I not consider it? And that really was the posture going in, and it all happened very quickly. And I went through the process of getting confirmed. That was a brutal process, but
read about it in the book. You need to read
yes.
about the confirmation process.
Yeah, it's quite a story. Lots of interesting characters, but it just seemed like a good natural step, in that I've always been interested in doing the right thing to support students and kids, and this would be just at a whole different level, and in a different way I could really have an impact. And so coming to the Department of Education was a huge opportunity to really do a 180 with everything that had gone on in that building in the administration before, and do a 180 to focus on students and doing the right thing for kids. And that's what we did. And I think, well, I know that everything we did was with the interest of kids in mind, and policies that would really give as much power back to the states and local communities as we possibly could. I personally think the Department of Education should not exist. I'm glad there's agreement here.
Is this the part where I get to see Randy Weingarten? You did that?
And actually, the last two budgets that we put forward for the Department of Education proposed block granting all the funds from the federal level to the states and local districts. It was never seriously considered by Congress, but I think that some of the events of the last couple of years may build on that move to really take a new look at why we even have a Department of Education. I just have to say, the Department of Education was stood up in 1979 after a 1976 commitment made by then candidate Jimmy Carter as a payoff to the teachers' unions for getting their endorsement that year. And so since that year, since 1979, we have, and it was supposedly with the goal of closing the achievement gap. Well, since then, we've spent over $1 trillion at the federal level with that goal in mind. And before the pandemic, looking at the achievement gap, not only had it not narrowed one little bit, by most measures, it has actually widened.
I have that. Can I read that for a second? So, the nation's report card, first recorded decline in math and reading scores for 13-year-olds in the 50-year history of the assessment. Lowest performing 10%, this is pre-COVID. Lowest performing 10% saw their math scores fall by 13% since 2012. Lowest performing 10% of 9-year-olds saw reading scores fall by 7 points. 13-year-old black students saw math scores fall 8 points. Hispanic students, 4 points. Not even high-performing students saw any measurable gains pre-pandemic. Not a single bright spot, you write, to be found in any of the data. No student group of any age, of any ethnicity, saw their performance improve since 2012. Most saw declines. And yet we keep spending more and more money.
That's right.
Funding educational failure.
And I would argue it's because we continue to fund systems and buildings, not students. And we need to fund students.